This was an alien creature humanity had never seen before. It had 2 heads and 8 long necks, each about 2 meters long. Unfortunately, it was a bit too arrogant and underestimated its surroundings. Another alien creature swallowed it whole in a single bite. Witnessing this scene, Lao He was so frightened that his face turned completely pale. Just then, Lao He seemed to step on something. As soon as he lifted his foot, other creatures rushed over and trampled it to death. Within moments, it was completely devoured. So where did these bizarre creatures come from? The night before, a sports car had driven into the desert. De Zhuang dragged his girlfriend out of the trunk and into a small cabin. Was he planning to indulge himself in the wilderness? Instead, he set his girlfriend on fire. It turned out he was preparing for a firefighter exam and had come here for intensive training. At that very moment, a fireball came hurtling toward him at a speed of 1,000 kilometers per second. The massive impact blasted both his girlfriend and the sports car hundreds of meters away. Early the next morning, biologist Lao Bai and geologist Lao He arrived at the meteorite impact site. To their astonishment, they discovered that the meteorite, which had fallen only the night before, was already covered in moss. Lao He cracked open the surface with a hammer and found an unknown liquid flowing out. He took a piece of the meteorite back for further study. Back in the lab, Lao Bai placed the sample under a microscope. He saw the single-celled organisms rapidly dividing at an astonishing rate. Before long, the containers burst apart from the growth. Genetic analysis confirmed that these were clearly not Earth-based life forms. Without hesitation, they led their students back to excavate the meteorite. But when they descended into the cave again, the sight before them left them completely stunned. Mushroom-shaped fungi had already grown around the meteorite, and venomous insects covered the ground. Lao Bai picked one up with tweezers and discovered that these creatures could only survive in an environment altered by the meteorite. Once exposed to open air, they suffocated and died. They captured a few specimens for further research, only to discover that the creatures could reproduce on their own. If this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. The two immediately drove back to the impact site, only to find the cave sealed off by the military. Inside the base, Lao Bai discovered that the commanding officer was an old friend of his, and that a CDC expert named Xiao Mei had also been brought in. Having lost their usefulness, Lao Bai and Lao He returned to the lab in frustration, only to find that all their research materials had been stolen. That night, the two disguised themselves as soldiers and infiltrated the base. After seeing the collected specimens, Lao Bai became convinced that the cave was far more dangerous than they had imagined. In just a few hours, the cave had transformed into a tropical rainforest, complete with plants, trees, and all kinds of grotesquely evolved creatures. Suddenly, a massive mosquito landed on Lao He. With a slight cut from its proboscis, it easily burrowed into his body. Lao He screamed in agony as the insect crawled down his leg. Doctors advised immediate amputation, or his life would be in danger. As Lao He's entire body fought desperately, the insect suddenly changed direction and crawled deeper into his thigh. Lao He shouted in panic. Luckily, the insect turned again and entered his rectum instead. The doctor immediately grabbed a 40-meter-long surgical clamp and reached in, finally extracting the creature. Meanwhile, strange monsters began appearing throughout the city. At a lakeside, a middle-aged man bent down to wash his hands, unaware that a small head had emerged from the water. When he turned around, he became the monster's next meal. Soon after, the creature mysteriously died. De Zhuang brought the corpse back for examination. It seemed the underground organisms had begun spreading outward but still hadn't fully adapted to Earth's atmosphere. Elsewhere, housewives were chatting at home when one of them heard noises coming from a wardrobe. When they opened it, they found an ugly-looking husky hiding inside, wearing a pitiful expression. One brave woman cautiously reached out to touch it, only for the creature to shoot out a long tongue and bite her. As the others scrambled for weapons, the creature suddenly collapsed and died for no apparent reason. The police were called, and Lao He analyzed the situation and concluded that the area was filled with abandoned mining tunnels connected to the caves, which explained why monsters kept appearing in the city. Just as he was feeling proud of his analysis, a monster suddenly stood up and expelled a fleshy mass from its mouth before dying. Soon, a small dinosaur was born. Unlike the others, it showed no fear of the cold air. Within seconds, it grew several times larger, shook its eyes, spread its wings, and flew toward the city center. A dinosaur-like alien creature began wreaking havoc across the city. If it were allowed to continue evolving, humanity would face extinction. When the three men arrived with guns, the monster had vanished. De Zhuang spotted a microphone nearby and instinctively sang into it. To everyone's surprise, the creature was drawn back by the beautiful music. From above, Lao Bai seized the opportunity and fired 3 shots, successfully bringing the monster down. The incident spread rapidly throughout the city. The governor rushed to the base to inquire about the situation, but the outlook was grim. Commanders proposed using incendiary bombs or even nuclear weapons to completely eliminate the threat. The governor refused to use weapons of mass destruction and approved a fire-based strategy instead. At that moment, a subordinate reported a new discovery. Primate-like creatures had evolved in the cave, destroyed all surveillance equipment, and were attempting to escape underground. Alarms blared throughout the base. As the situation spiraled out of control, the mayor authorized the use of incendiary bombs, and nearby residents began evacuating. Meanwhile, Lao Bai stared at the frozen meteorite fluid that had halted metabolism. If the operation failed, humanity would have no choice but to await extinction. Lao He lit a cigarette in frustration and tossed the match aside. The burning match fell into the meteorite fluid, and almost instantly, the organisms began rapidly dividing and expanding, soon covering the entire lab bench. They realized that exposure to fire accelerated the creature's cellular evolution. Lao Bai immediately tried to warn the commander to stop the incendiary attack, but the stubborn commander refused to listen. At that moment, Lao Bai noticed the periodic table behind Xiao Mei and suddenly had an idea. According to the periodic table, water is deadly to humans, and for carbon-based life forms, tin should be lethal. But to eliminate the aliens, they would need at least 500 liters of tin, impossible to gather in time. Then a student pointed out that shampoo contains large amounts of organotin compounds, which could serve as a substitute. Lao Bai immediately mobilized his students, found a fire truck, and filled it with shampoo. Unfortunately, under the commander's pressure, the incendiary bombs were detonated early. The creatures in the pit began growing at an explosive rate. A colossal organism burst from underground, sweeping away soldiers like ants. Worse still, it continued to split and grow. At the critical moment, Lao Bai and his team drove straight into the danger zone, jammed the water cannon upward, and drenched the monster. After being injected with shampoo, massive amounts of thick fluid poured out of its body. It began swelling rapidly and soon exploded on the spot with a thunderous blast. Once again, knowledge proved its power. Study physics and chemistry well, and you'll have nothing to fear wherever you go.